There's this thing in bike riding called puncture paranoia. So you think you have a puncture, but you don't. Every time you hit a bump or go over something, you think that you got the puncture and you have to check. I just feel as though it's like Range Rover or Land Rover paranoia, where
Yeah.
it's just the exact same effect, but it ends up costing you more money.
You just know something will happen, but it is part of the adventure, right? So when I tried to drive from London to Barcelona here, we broke down once, we fixed the car, and then we broke down again on the same journey. How likely is it to break down twice on, I think it's about 900 miles. So it's part, it's part of the adventure.
Andrei, welcome to the show.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well because what we're going to do is talk about Land Rovers for the next 30, 40, 50 minutes. So I'm excited about that. You're the proud owner of 3 Range Rovers, which
Yes.
collectively are close to or older than 20 years old. Why
Yes.
don't you just sell them all and get a newer model? What is it about a older model that is so attractive?
Oh, did you speak to anyone in my family and did they ask you to? They ask me this every single day. I don't know. The thing is, I got into. I love cars in general. I think you know how it is, and you just sort of you get one and you enjoy it, and there's things about it that you like doing. I'm sure for many people as well, it's a very relaxing thing to do after work or things like that. Just kind of fiddle with it and do things like that, and I, it's Facebook Marketplace. That's why I ended up with more than one. I should sell it. I won't sell it for now. Maybe I will. But yeah, I don't know why. There's 3 there, especially that they're not working at the moment. I know.
You say they're not working. To what extent are they not working? As in, they just need a part fixed or what?
One of them is so one of them, the P38, which is kind of the middle Range Rover, 1996, is has an ABS problem. I've tried to fix it myself, and I'm trying to do a little bit more of that as much as I can. But I got to a point where I realized I'm unable to do it, and so I sent it to a garage, and it's currently being fixed, but it's been there for about 3 weeks, so I don't know what's going on. So one has an ABS problem. It doesn't have MOT. Here in Spain, it's called ITV, and it doesn't run. The L322 needs an engine. I think it's a valve problem. So we need to swap out the engine, and I need to actually go and collect it from the UK, bring it to Spain. So that's the next big adventure. And then the Classic has a hole in the footwell, and it needs to be soldered. And it's raining at the moment, so I can't drive it with that massive leak from the footwell.
So we're not even 3 minutes in, and you've already probably not sold the whole old Range Rover thing.
Hey, listen, I had a call with a client earlier on, and immediately, the moment the client, it was quite an intense call. Immediately, hang on, I'll show you. Look, I was on eBay chatting about some parts for the Classic, and so that's kind of it's enjoyable in that sense. I love it. I love fixing it. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Kind of fixing a problem. It's back on the road. That gives me a bit of just makes it exciting.
My wife always says that the best amateur mechanics are Land Rover owners.
Yeah, well, you have to figure it out. There's no, I mean, yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. What about you, Joe? What's your experience with Land Rover?
Well, we had a little Freelander for a few years, and then we lived in the Alps, kind of on and off for 2 years.
Yeah.
And we kept taking it to garages because different things were going. It was an old car. It was like an '09 plate, 130,000 miles. Things were going periodically every sort of 3 months or whatever. But all the garages would just say it's Land Rover. We'd be like, no, we don't serve the Land Rover. And we're like, oh, dude, come on. It's just the electrics. I promise, it's fine.
It is a recurring problem on continental Europe. I realized that people just don't want to touch Land Rovers. Depends on where you are. Obviously, there are exceptions, and there are a lot of enthusiasts across Spain, France, and Switzerland with Land Rovers. But I think if you find yourself broken down or something like that, and you need a garage quite quickly, it's not going to happen. It happened to us when we broke down in near Paris about a year ago, and we were taken to a garage in Paris, and they told us it's a head gasket failure, when in fact it was just a split hose at the back of the in the cooling system. It was literally a 5 pound part, and they said it's a head gasket failure just so that they can get rid of us.
Yeah, it's annoying. But we were in France at the time, which where we were, it was all Peugeot and Citroen, and all the
Yeah.
garages were Peugeot and Citroen only. We
Mhm.
did find like a friendly garage in the end, and it was okay.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of scarred now because every time I got a newer car, I got a 2015 L494 Range
Yeah.
Rover. But anytime anything makes a noise, I just get scared because I'm like, oh no, what's that? But it's actually just normal. It's just that in the old car that every time something rattled, it was going to cost me money.
I know that feeling, and listen, it's a valid way to feel. I can 100% relate. I don't like surprise sounds. I don't touch the buttons here because I know that's trouble. So if I touch the suspension buttons, like better not touch it unless it's absolutely necessary. For example, we got stuck in the sand a few weeks ago in my classic, and it was the first time I touched the range lever because I couldn't get out of that sand without putting it in low range. And that was and I was actually surprised. It actually works. I was really happy with that. Yeah. Though better not to touch it because you never know what's going to happen.
There's this thing in bike riding where it's called puncher paranoia. So you think you have a puncher, but you don't.
Yeah.
And then every time you like hit a bump or go over something, you think that you got the puncher and you have to like check whatever. I just feel as though it's like Range Rover or Land Rover paranoia, where
Yeah.
it's just the exact same effect, but ends up costing you more money.
Yeah. Look, you just know something will happen, but it is part of the adventure, right? So when I tried to drive from London to Barcelona here, um, we broke down once, we fixed the car, and then we broke down again on the same journey. How likely is it to break down twice on 1,000 mile? No, it's even less. I think it's about 900 miles down here, but it's part it's part of the adventure.
I was driving down where we live, was ski town called Morsey,
Yeah.
and I was driving along the main street, and it was like the power was failing. But oh, well, that's a bit strange. And then suddenly I look at my rear view mirror, and it's all white smoke, and the turbo had blown. And it was so bad that the whole street you just couldn't see any of it, just because it just completely blown. And I was like, oh man. And it was just after we'd driven from Scotland to the French Alps for like the sixth time or whatever. Just did it through the night, like 1,000 miles non-stop. And I just think it was a bit too much for the old car at the time. And I thought, oh well, that kind of served me right.
Yeah, well, at least it got you there,
Yeah.
and you were fine. I every time I cross Switzerland, I pray that I don't break down there. Uh, it's just that it's the weirdest thing because I know that if I break down there, it's going to be trouble. I know I've heard of someone who had to literally abandon the car there because it was impossible to fix it, both for obviously cost reasons as well as knowledge around.
When you drive from the Alps up to Calais, you kind of have to go into Switzerland for a bit for the Geneva bit. It's like every time we went and I was like, nothing happened, nothing happened, nothing happened. And every time we went back to France, I was like, whew, that was close.
Yeah, I know that feeling of relief when you cross back into France. It's just like, wow, yes, I didn't break down. Do you know what happened last year? We were crossing the Alps. We came from Italy, uh, crossing the Alps through St. Moritz, and then we left. We drove through Zurich, I think, and then destination was Colmar in France. And we went up the mountain, back down. It was perfect. The car was fine. When we got to the hotel in France, it broke down. So it broke. The alternator went, and it was just interesting to see how we've managed to escape breaking down in Switzerland. But she did, poor girl. She broke down at the end of the journey when we stopped the car. It is.
So when a lot of people want to get thrills, they go skydiving or play high stakes poker, but it seems that you just drive across continental Europe in old Range Rovers. Why,
Yeah,
why do you do so many miles?
yeah. I think and it's about I'm going to set off again next week on Friday. I need to go back up and collect the engine for the L322. I haven't decided if I'm going to take the Classic or the P38. I guess I'll decide on the day what it will be. I don't know. But yeah, I think it is an adventure and I love it, but it's just a little bit harder to convince my wife and the dogs to come along with every trip. It's harder and harder.
And what are you doing with these trips? Is it just for recreational holiday, or is there a purpose to them?
Well, sometimes I have something to do. Well, sometimes work related, sometimes it's not. So it really depends. But yeah, I prefer driving there rather than using other forms of transport.
Your L322 is absolutely stunning, and it really seems that L322s are going through a resurgence in their
Yeah,
popularity in the last years. They're just so popular, and the
yeah,
price of them is just skyrocketing.
half of them. Yeah,
Why? Why?
interesting.
Why do you think that is?
I think just I think we are becoming the generation that is, kind of driving price increases up. I guess we're at a point in our lives like I don't know. I'm 32, and so and I see people that are older and younger that kind of reflect on this period. When we were young, kids or whatever, and these L322s were really cool but impossible because they were expensive, and now they're affordable. So I think that they're amazing cars, and that they're building a bit of a renewed interest recently.
Why do you think that is? Because it seems like a lot of people like them because it's the perfect intersection between practicality and luxury. Whereas, for example, like my sport out there is like it's nice, but I don't, and it can go off road, and I don't mind taking it off road, but I don't really want to take it off road because it's
Mhm.
just a bit too nice and pristine.
Yeah.
So, is that like, is it the intersection that people are after? Is it just a bit of nostalgia? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think it goes beyond its functionality. I think it goes beyond the fact that it's a nice car. It has leather interior and stuff like that. It's about um, the icon that's kind of becoming of what it is. It's a cool old barge that costs tens of thousands. Back when it was new, and now you can pick it up for very little money. It's kind of interesting, I think. It's Don't get me wrong, it's an incredible car, beautiful design. It is pretty much, you go inside. Yeah, it feels a little bit dated, especially around technology and stuff, but it's still a lovely place to be, and it's a nice car. But it's more about that. It's not just kind of an everyday car. What car should I get that's nice to drive? And it's not that car. Um, I, just spending time here in Spain, I realized that a lot of people use these, especially older Land Rovers like classics and P38s. They use them as daily cars rather than as a toy, and it's interesting to see because some of them are just literally workhorses. If I think about mine, when I got mine, I lifted the carpet in the boot, and you could see they've carried firewood and it was a proper workhorse. Even jet washing it underneath, there was like a lot of dirt underneath and stuff. And I think that the L322, yes, it is a really nice car. I think it's going a little bit beyond that at the moment.
So just in, you said about Spain. I remember when we were spent the month of February in Spain, we'd driven from Scotland down and by the Alps, and we rocked up, and there's the usual kind of Spanish battered cars, etc. And then next door had a Heritage Defender, and I was like, wait a
Yeah,
second, that's weird to see. And
yeah,
like it had the rack on, and it had like surfboards on top, which just loaded up, and you could
yeah.
tell it just had like the perfect life, just carting about, being a workhorse.
Yeah, that's what they were built to be. And I think here people just take them as like the guy who fixes my central heating. He has a 110 Defender, and he's got like tools and stuff there in the boot, and it's just like his work car. Whereas, somewhere else, you might see them go for, 30, 40 grand. But to him, it's just his work car.
Is that though, do you think, only in the older models? Whereas now you wouldn't really have a newer Range Rover as a work car? Or is that just the case that you buy a car and then if you have it for 20 years, it's going to be a work car eventually?
I
Like,
think
is the newer models, do they just not fit the bill?
well, it's if we reflect on these old cars that you see, I think it's both the car market here, used models retain a lot of value, and so I don't know why, but people tend to hold on to their cars for a lot longer, um, and that's why we end up with this. But you don't see a farmer replacing his old Defender here with a brand new Range Rover. That's not going to happen. But that's partly because of where the product from Land Rover has gone in the last sort of 20 30, since the L322. But you can still with Toyotas, for example, we have a neighbor here who's a farmer. He had a Land Cruiser before they've replaced the car with a newer-ish Land Cruiser. I think it's Land Rover that have shifted their product, obviously.
And is that something in which you lament the fact that they have really shifted into the luxury side of things?
Well, I think they did the right thing. I mean, they're doing really well, right? So I think they did the right thing. I still like the new Range Rovers. I think they're really cool. Of course, I want to own every model of Range Rover that has ever come out. I'm working on that. I think they're cool. I'm approaching my Land Rover enthusiasm and just ownership from the angle of not the utilitarian angle, but kind of what they've built to arrive where they are at the moment.
It's quite funny. I know someone locally here in Scotland who owns quite a lot of land, and they go about in a buggy, like ATV, all-terrain vehicle buggy, and they just pass about. It's taxed. It's got a number plate. They just go about in it. And I was reflecting on that, and I thought that's what Land Rovers were. When they first brought out, the series, for example, they were just like glorified buggies.
Yeah.
And then it's really through an evolution, and you can't really now get the equivalent of a buggy. Like the Defenders now, which are the workhorses, they start at like 50 grand.
They do. And I think from the lineup, from the current Land Rover lineup, if I were to choose a new car for daily driving, I'd probably look at the Defender, because with the dogs and and the mud and all that stuff, like I wouldn't buy a new Range Rover to use it like that. But the Defender seems to be a decent option. But I don't know. I mean, if it were to be used as a daily farm vehicle, I don't think Land Rover produces anything like that anymore. It's not within their target market any longer, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would agree. And it's not something in which I'm really that sad about. A lot of people do lament it. They say, "Oh, the halcyon days of a rugged car that would be a farm vehicle." But really, it's not really where the market is now. It's like the average starting price now for the Jaguar Land Rover. It's in the 60s to thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
That's just where the market is, and go for them for obviously doing it. The Defender's been a huge success. It's interesting. I was reading about how the Defender has really cannibalized the Discovery market. So if you wanted a luxury family vehicle, you'd now get a Defender rather than a Discovery, just because they're so much cooler. Every 6 Defenders sold, there's only 1 Discovery.
Yeah.
So now the whole Discovery market, they're having to completely redo what will be the Discovery 6 to sort of take it away to what it is now and then take it back to what it was, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah, I think, just chatting earlier about their lineup, and I completely forgot about the full-size Discovery, to be honest. I forgot about it. I think what they built the Defender to be is what the Discovery should have been. It would have been the next model up from maybe, the Discovery 4, for example. You'd expect to see this as the next one up. But that's kind of, they merged 2 models, the Defender and the Discovery, into one.
Yeah. One of the best videos I think on YouTube is I'd be surprised if you haven't seen it, but it's Harry's Garage when he talks to Jeremy Clarkson about their L322s. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
It's just I'll put it in the show notes. It's that good, and people should just go and watch it. And it's just two people who have pretty much driven every single top end car out there, and they
Yeah.
both have kept their L322s, and they
Yeah.
both just love them.
Yeah. As L322 owners, we were delighted to see that. It's a bit of validation to our sort of insanity, let's say, right? It's almost like an excuse to say, okay, well, if they say it's good, then I must spend every single penny on keeping it on the road. It's not good overall, but yeah, I'm glad that video exists. Just gives the maybe that's a contributing factor as well to how they've managed to slightly be more cherished. I don't know if they went up in value. I still see them popping up for like $2,000 each, but there's certainly more attention around them recently.
I have a local guy who's actually selling his L322 for £2,500. But I just don't know if I want to take the plunge for reliability. Like, I've kind of done it all. I just kind of like something that starts, but then I've always like wanted an L322, so it's a real head and heart thing.
Yeah, I'm not the best person to ask for advice on that, but I would say it really like owning the car. When we lived back in London, it was quite hard. I mean, it is, garages are usually very busy and they don't want to deal with you. They're very expensive, and it has been quite pricey to keep it on the road there. But I imagine maybe somewhere outside a big city where you have a little bit more space and you can do some things yourself if you have, maybe a jack and a couple of stands, and have a reliable mechanic that's not busy all the time. Then yes, I think that'd be good. I think it's a good idea, but it can be an expensive adventure.
One of the lines in that video, in which has really stood out to me and actually changed the way that I view my current Range Rover,
Right.
is that Harry says that the L322 has the DNA of a transit van. And then looking through that lens, I like kind of realized mine is just a bit too nice and it's just a bit too pristine. And I don't want the dogs to get in where they're all muddy, or like when I load in their car, like boot full of bags because we're going somewhere, probably to the Alps again. It's like I'm just like putting them neatly, not just chucking them in. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like it's not really what a car is for me. It's like it's a
Yeah.
workhorse that's really nice to drive.
It's true. I mean, it depends. Like, I still love mine very much, and even though it's broken at the moment, I'd still kind of, I look at it and wash it every now and again, and I still look after it. So I don't know if I suddenly put, construction materials in the boot. But I get some people would do that, and yeah, I know I have a friend in Belgium who uses it for towing every day, and it's really a workhorse while still being a really nice car.
When Harry reviewed the new Ineos Grenadier,
Yeah.
and its towing capacity and its noise when it was towing on the road going at 6 miles an hour, etc. He then compared it to his L322, which is obviously like, I don't know, 50 grand cheaper. And he just said that the L322 is actually just better, a better car for what most people will need it for.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think about the Ineos Grenadier?
I actually didn't like it, and now I do really like it. What I like about it is the utilitarian nature of it. So it's like manual handbrake, key and ignition. The boot pull at the back is manual. I quite like that, and I like the fact that a lot of the trim inside is actually plastic, so it's like wipeable, etc.
Yeah.
I actually haven't had a chance to drive one yet. I was speaking to someone who did, and he said it drove as well as you could hope for on the road. Obviously, it's not meant to be a road driving car; it's an off-road machine. But I'm very tempted by it.
Why would you consider that against a used car that is 10% of the price, though? Because a used car that's 15 years old, 10, 15 years old, sure, it has less reliability, but it would have manual controls, the classic handles, the ignition, all that stuff. And you come, I don't know, that's what I mean. It's an interesting USP that they're presenting, but you get a lot of that experience with something, like a used car. And yeah, what do you think?
It's interesting, actually. I was speaking to my wife just last night, and we were kind of looking at different options for replacing this sport that we have. And one
Yeah.
thing we do really both like is the Discovery 4. And in
Hmm.
reality, the Discovery 4 is everything that we like about the Ineos Grenadier.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
it's 40 grand cheaper.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, I would maybe in like 5 years when the Ineos comes down in price,
Yeah.
I'd look at it like, no way now. But but certainly the Discovery 4 ticks all of the boxes. And it's actually got more loading capacity in the boot than the
Yeah.
Ineos does. And it'll probably be nicer to drive on the road because they were more road orientated cars.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I haven't driven it, and I haven't researched enough into it. But the other concern I'd have is it's a small brand at the moment, and I assume they have a small production. It's a bit of a hodgepodge between different parts from different manufacturers. That's another thing that would concern me. Maybe 4 or 5 years later, when it's out of warranty, how will you be able to fix it? I don't know.
It's quite interesting, I think. But it's definitely a problem for 5 years' time now,
Yeah,
rather than right now.
yeah,
But what's interesting is that the Queen, the late Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II,
yeah.
never drove anything that wasn't an L322 as well.
Wow,
No,
really?
she never drove the L405, like nothing. Always the L322. Or she
Yeah.
was being driven in other cars, which I thought was quite interesting.
We all know the photos of her driving the L322, and there are several Range Rovers that been seen driving in L322. Oh, you're correct. I can't remember seeing her driving something else. And it was Prince Philip was driving a Freelander too, right? But yeah, it's such an iconic car from that perspective, and that also has contributed a little bit to where the car is today.
Mm. So just on the Grenadier front, Jeremy Clarkson says that he never really understood like why people were that interested in classic Defenders. It's like for the less price you could get a Range Rover that drives way nicer, probably a bit more reliable, and does all the things that most people need to do. Like not many people are taking a Defender to its off-roading limit, and a
Yeah,
Range Rover could probably do about 90% of the same thing. So he
yeah.
said he just never really understood why. What do you think? Are you ever tempted by the old Defenders?
Not really. I've never. I mean, they're cool, and I'd love to drive one once. But I'm not sure I would pay the price to own it. Because if I look at my classic, I was chatting to a fellow enthusiast, and I was showing him some photographs from underneath, and he said, "I said, hang on a second, looks like a Defender from underneath." So I'm sure back in the '90s when they were building these models. I'm sure there's a lot of cross utilization between parts and other things. Like even the engine that I have mine, the 300 TDI, is an engine that you can find in the Defender as well, and it's quite a good engine. And so I think I'm getting some of that experience without having to pay for it. And I also think that there's a bit of a cult around the Defender that I haven't really caught on with. I think so. I don't know. I'm not. I think they're interesting, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not looking at Defender listings. I'm more of a sort of cheap financial mistakes rather. Yeah.
I was speaking to a local farmer actually recently, and he's a Defender nut. And he used to graze his sheep on some of the fields of the guy who created the TD5 engine. And
Right.
he was chatting to him one day, and the guy said that he made the TD5 engine to last 250,000 miles,
Mm.
which I think there's not many modern manufacturers who say that.
No, I think well, listen, we are in an era of massive consumerism with cars, and I don't think engines are built to last any longer. I think it's also because of people's buying patterns. Everyone's invested in some sort of lease or 3-year deal, and with the new electric cars, I think it's going to be even shorter than that. A shorter lifespan for cars in general before they hit the scrap.
I was reading that the average battery lifespan of a electric car is 8 years, and the average car on British roads is 8 years old. So this
Yeah.
push to electric is like, oh my goodness, like in 8 years' time, we're all going to be stuffed.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I mean. I drive an electric car on a daily basis. I don't own it. It's sort of a long-term rental. It's a Fiat 500 with about 160 miles range. I know a lot of people hate them. I love them. I love it. I love the electric car.
Classic.
I love driving the electric car. I think they're just perfect for like everyday driving, but I've never spent my money on buying one. I'd rather lease it, and then at the end of the lease, it's just somebody else's responsibility. It's a shame because from an environmental perspective, which is their number one unique selling point, right? I think it's a little bit of it's a bit of a red herring, to be honest, because um their short lifespan means that they will end up being scrapped a lot quicker. Is that the most sustainable way of in the industry? Probably not.
We've spoken a lot about your L322 and different models. Introduce me to your other two, which you have in your stable.
Yes. So the classic is a 1994 300 TDI soft dash classic. It's been in the Barcelona area for all its life. I bought it from someone who's used and abused it really, really badly, and that was part of the reason why I've bought it, because I just looked at it and I felt compelled to save it. I looked at it and gosh, it's
Very
been
altruistic.
yeah, I was like, my God, I can't let this fall apart. So I bought it. It was a good deal. I paid €4,500 on it. With the prices of classics are going up. I think Spain still is a good market to source them because, like I said earlier, people still use them as daily cars, workhorses, and so on. But yeah, so I've seen it. It was lovely, soft dash. It was extremely dirty, and that was a bit of a process trying to clean it up. And then we did a nice paint job. We did a huge mechanical overhaul. My mechanic helped me with most of that work because it was too complex for my knowledge. And she's back on the road. She's at 150,000 miles, 240,000 kilometers. I feel terrible driving it because I know that it will just add miles. It's just such a stupid thing. I think it, for example, in Spain, this is another interesting thing. The mileage on a car matters less than the condition and if it has an MOT and if it's a good price. Like people very rarely look at the mileage and say, okay, it's too many miles. If it's in good mechanical condition, well, it's good enough. Whereas I feel that in other parts, including the UK, mileage is extremely important. And even if it's the car's a bit of a wreck and it's rotten through, if it's on low miles, will still fetch a high price. Well, that wouldn't happen here. But I still suffer with that mentality. And so I hate putting miles on the Range Rover Classic. Every time I drive it, I feel bad, but I shouldn't because this engine is known to last quite a long time. So that's the Classic. And then the P38 that I bought just about a month ago is a 4.6 Rover V8. The engine's been swapped because the old one overheated. So it has it has also about 150,000 miles in the dash, but the engine's about 70,000 miles. So I guess I have a bit of room there to use it and enjoy it before I know something will happen. Yeah, and it's been a bit pimped, so it has black windows and smoked out rear lamps and yeah. So it needs a bit of work around there, which is exciting. I can't wait to do that once it's out of the garage.
Did you have back to L322? Sorry, did you have a navy one that you then did up and sold? Is that right?
I did, yeah. So I bought that just before knowing that we were going to move to Spain. So unfortunately, I couldn't keep it. That navy one was really nice. It was about 70,000 miles. It had failed an MOT because of sills being rotten and around the rear arches as well, which are big, known spots for L322s to rust. But other than that, the engine, that M62 BMW engine, was immaculate, and I fixed it. I welded where I was supposed to. Um, yeah, changed a few things, fixed a few other things, and then sold it because I had hoped I could have continued using my other L322, the original workhorse, but that one broke down as well.
So say someone is like, oh, well, these L322 sound terrific. What sort of price do you think people should have in their mind if they're going to go buy one?
Right. So it depends on the generation that they're looking for. I love the first generation of the L322. I think they look best, but they are the least reliable ones to buy. And the prices for them are really all over the place. Like I've seen them go for as little as £900. But obviously it depends on what if you're looking for a project or if you're looking for a good car, because good cars are rarer and rare to find, and so they obviously cost a lot more than you'd expect. But if you like the first generation, I'd say go for the V8. Again, it's less reliable, but it's the best one to have. Make sure the gearbox being looked at because it's one of the major failing points. Rust again, I think. And then in terms of budget, maybe try and look for something around 5-6 grand. The engine is not extremely reliable. I've seen them go to over 250,000 miles, but very rarely. And so I'd say maybe try and look for something around the 100,000 miles with the gearbox sorted and just in general well looked after. I think that's the one I'd recommend. I would buy again tomorrow. But the newer generation, 2009, so latest facelift, 2009, 2012, I hear the 4.4 TDV8 is the best engine to have, and they feel much more of a modern car than the first generation. Depends on if you're looking for a daily driver, that's also nice. I'd go for something like that. If you're looking to own a part of L322 history, I'd look at the first model M62 engine.
It's interesting that the P38 didn't really take off from the same way that the L322 has. So it's like the classic is coming back and really making headway into its popularity, and then the L322 is obviously skyrocketed. But there's this sort of lost generation of the P38.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, if I'm honest. I don't know. I don't know if it's like a cultural thing of like when the L322 came out, it was like early 2000s. Britain was sort of riding a wave of sort of new labour. Everyone was happy and everyone was making money, etc. Whereas the 90s were potentially more of a turbulent time. I don't know that aesthetics wise. I actually quite like the P38 and
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
I think they're cool looking cars, yeah.
Yeah, or maybe it's just because of the online conversation, which is inspiring a lot of people to buy L322s. There's not the equivalent of a P38 sort of organization trying to push things. What do you think?
I think it has to do with it. First of all, BMW when they took over Land Rover, they had zero confidence in it, so they discontinued it. I think that in general as an idea has a bit of an effect on this. Second is that their lifespan was quite short as well. I mean, shorter than the other ones. It came out in 1995, and then by 2001, 2002 is already gone. And another thing that someone told me, which I can't forget, because if I tell you now, you're also not going to be able to forget. They said it's basically it looks like a metro cab, and it's true. If you look, yeah, it is. They're kind of similar, and then once you see it, you can't unsee it. So that's another thing I think, and also reliability. I mean, they're terrible. The electrics are just terrible. But there are a couple of like enthusiasts that are really invested into like diagnostic and all that stuff, and I think with them, with this like Nanocom, for example, that built they built a device to be able to troubleshoot it, and I think this will maybe put P38s back again on the map. Just they don't run if they have an electric problem. You can't unlock them. You can't start them. This ABS issue that I have with mine again. You can't. There's no mechanical way to fix it. You have to look at the electrics.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Do you think though, say like a Series 3, they're quite popular.
Yeah.
versus say like a classic Range Rover. Like I see the Range Rover very much as sort of coming up behind the series in its popularity and potentially overtaking it. Because now to find like even a Series 2, Series 3, like a good one is actually really hard.
Yeah.
And they're still pretty darn rudimental in their, in the cockpit, as it were, as you're
Yeah.
sitting there. Whereas even like the classic Range Rover, it's nice seats, it's very comfy, it's very
Yeah.
spacious. So I could really see that the classic overtaking a series in its popularity.
I'm sure it will. I watched a Doc DeMuro video a while back, and he was asked like, "What do you think is going to be the highest growing, uh, in value or classic car segment?" And he said heritage models of existing SUVs. The old Land Cruiser, Range Rover Classic, the Bronco, they've all started to go up in value. And I know a few companies who, for example, they're based out here in Spain and they sell to America and to Germany and Netherlands. And, they sell Range Rover Classics for 30, 40 grand, which I think, it's really promising for the Range Rover Classic. And there's fewer and fewer left of them every year. You see Land Rover themselves through their Classic branch. They are starting to promote the Range Rover Classic a little bit more and kind of diversify from the Classic Defender and series type of models. You see like Burberry used the Range Rover Classic in a lot of their advertising recently, and I think it's going to grow in value and there'll be fewer and fewer left to find.
I was watching a video of this guy who converted his Classic from a normal engine into an electric engine. Cost him about £18,000.
Yeah,
And I
I've
was
seen.
like, dang, if you pick up like a good Classic for say like 6, 7, and then convert it across, like that's a pretty awesome machine you've got there.
Yeah, but I hear it's very expensive. There's a company that does it. They've done one, and they just recently raffled. I can't remember raffled it. I can't remember their name. Inverted, I think they are called. But I think they were selling it for like 100 grand, something like that.
Whoa!
But yeah, but because it was probably built like it was rebuilt from the ground up with
Okay, yeah.
it being an EV, and I definitely have one of those, especially because I love EVs.
Okay, so the modern Land Rover Range Rover range, you said you'd have a Defender. If I had to ask you to rank them, so we got as well as Range Rover, so Vogue, Sport, Discovery, Discovery Sport, Velar, Evoque, and then we're exclude. Well, we'll include the Defender if you want to add that.
Yeah.
If you had a podium and then say like a top 6, what would it be? What
From
order?
from what I would own or buy,
Yeah, if you buy, yeah.
I probably put the Defender first. I put the new Range Rover, full size Range Rover second, because it is cool. And
It's so cool. You see it on the motorway and it comes past. It's just like, damn.
Yeah, it was. But I think it's turning more, especially if you go around London, you see them being driven by, Uber drivers and stuff like that. It's more of a limousine rather than a daily car. And I would, if I were in that position where I could afford one, I'd probably be chauffeured around in one rather than drive it myself. Although it's a nice car to drive, but I think if I had a few of them, all of them parked, I'd probably lean towards driving the Defender myself. Whereas new Range Rover, I think, is more of a car to be driven in. I still go with the new Range Rover second.
Do you know they're so long that their new rear wheels turn when you?
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's just so wild.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. I think that's really nice. But it's still like it's not something that would convince me to buy it.
Yeah.
It's a gimmick, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that'll go second. Maybe the third would be the Sport, then the Discovery Sport, and then I'd probably place the Evoque. Do you know what the Evoque is basically the Freelander of today, right? And they're really capable cars. They're really good. I think I went to their launch when they launched the new model, and they were doing test runs around the track, and it seemed very capable off-road as well. It's actually a really good car. but it's a bit small. I think it plays into that everybody wanting to drive an SUV, which in fact is a hatchback on with bigger sort of slightly lifted hatchback. But it's a good car, but I have no interest in it.
I really didn't like the Evoque for a very long time. And then I saw one literally 2 weeks ago, and they'd lifted it on springs a bit, and it had BF Goodrich all-terrain tires on it. And I was like, whoa, that actually looks really good.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. Please send me that. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite funny.
Yeah, and we forgot about the Velar.
Yes.
I don't know where I'd place the Velar. Probably before the Disco Sport, between the full-size Discovery and the Disco Sport.
Yeah. I looked at, instead of, it was kind of the front runners, as it were, just because we're doing like no off-roading, all road miles, just wanted a nice car from the Freelander to then, the Sport. We looked at the Velar. But in reality, like, they're not cheap cars now. And like, you can buy a full fat 3-liter Sport for like $5,000 less than you can buy a Velar.
Yeah, and it's a much bigger car. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right about that. And also, they're impossible to insure. I mean, I don't know how it is where you're currently based in Scotland, but in London, you couldn't insure a Velar. So, there are some companies that lease them or sell them for £300-400 a month, but then you can't insure it. It doesn't work.
Yeah, like, especially with my Sport, obviously it's the most stolen car in Britain.
Yeah.
It's really impossible to get them insured within the M25. Because I'm in rural Scotland, the insurance company looks at my postcode and they're like, oh, you're fine. It's like, no one's going to your driveway, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, I agree. I think, when we come back to the UK at the end of the year, we'll have to just look somewhere outside London, because you can't in London, unfortunately.
Yeah. So do you not just spend the entirety of your savings on car maintenance and certainly insurance? Because it's like, you got 3 plus, and then you've got more as well, not just the Range Rovers. We haven't really spoken about the Range Rovers. So it's like road tax, insurance, let alone anything maintenance costs.
Well, listen, in Spain here, the insurance for the 3 cars cost me less than the insurance for the L322 in London.
No.
Yeah.
Dak. How?
Yeah, I think insurance pricing in the UK are just shocking. It's just a robbery, I think.
Wow.
As simple as that. I don't know. Hopefully I'm never going to, touch wood, be in a situation to claim on insurance. But I've never had an accident, claimed on insurance, anything, except for once when I had a car stolen. Yes. But you know what? I claimed on insurance then, not knowing that my premium would go up. So I think I've paid the amount that they've paid back over the years, 2 times, 3-4-fold, I think. Yeah. So I think insurances are unfortunately a bit of a mess in the UK. But I don't know how it's like to be somewhere rural where there's a lower risk. Maybe they come up a little bit cheaper, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that being said, I'm still paying £100 a month in insurance. So
wow, it's still a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. So
yeah.
So what is looking ahead, what do you have planned on the horizon? Any more car acquisitions, or are you happy with your fleet at the moment?
I'm really searching for, just scrolling rather than searching. I'm scrolling through listings, looking at. I'd love a Renault Twingo from the 90s.
Yeah.
I would love a Fiat Multipla. I think that's definitely high up on the list. And I'm sure at one point I'll buy a 996 Porsche 911. The one with the fried egg headlights. What about you?
We'll probably sell this Sport, probably buy a Discovery 4 or something similar. And then my wife is looking at a Mini.
Cool, yeah.
Cooper. It's cream, soft top. She'll be super happy about that.
It's cool. The soft top Mini is a great car. Great
choice. I think that combined with the Discovery 4 or a big Land Rover of sorts. We'll see us certainly through to the next year, and then
Yeah,
we'll revisit things from there.
that's a good, sensible two-car garage. Well
Yeah.
done.
Awesome. Well, Andrei, what better way to spend a Friday morning chatting about Land
Yes,
Rovers and Range Rovers? Thank you
absolutely.
very much for coming on and telling us your tales of garage visits, but also high highs of getting to drive Land Rovers across the continent of Europe.
Thanks
Thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Yeah, it's a big adventure coming up next week. I'll be driving back to the UK to collect the engine for the L322. So wish me luck.
I'll put your socials in the link below, and then people can join along. That would be a lot of fun.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Joe. Nice. Thank you. I really appreciate this. It was fun.